Hello, hello, Tewksbury teens, to Manga Art Class Faces. Are you new to the world of manga art? Welcome to this wonderful and fun world and art style. What is manga art? For those of you who are new to the realm, anime, or manga in this case, is a style of Japanese comics, anime being the same style of Japanese animation, often based on manga. For those of you who are confused of the difference between graphic novels, comics, and manga, graphic novels are more individually stylized, while comics, or superhero comics, are more realistic. Manga has its own signature style, which is often big eyes, wild hairstyles and colors, pointy noses, and wacky expressions. While we're at it, let's take a look at the reference packet I made for this class. There's examples of that signature style, such as noses and examples of mouths and hair and ears, face shapes, different ages, head angles, practice sheets, loads of cool stuff. If you haven't received this PDF prior to this class, please let me know via our social media at the end of this video. It will also be in the description of the video. I like to try to start with a few warm-up techniques such as lines, shapes, whatnot. It gets you really loosened up, kind of like when you stretch for sports. It's a good way to get warmed up, and I always do before I start. But it's up to you. As for our class today, it'll be split up in 6 10-minute increments, so you can choose to skip ahead, pause, rewind, whichever works for you. So let's get to it. For our materials, all we need is a pencil and paper. But I'll show you my preferences, just what I like. So I have a pencil, an eraser, mechanical pencils, a sharpener for the wooden pencil, some clickable erasers, pencil lead in different colors. I like to do a mechanical pencils with color lead and blue in this case. I also like Bristol vellum if you want to level up, especially if you want to ink your art later. It's a heavier and stronger paper. I'm using marker paper just because it's what I have on hand and I really like the feel of it, but choose printer paper works just as well. I'd also recommend having a piece of paper just to rest your hand on it so you don't smudge your work, and a ruler if you have trouble drawing straight lines. Let's get to it. Here we're going to start with the feminine face from the front. It's an easier place to start, especially if you're a beginner. As you can see here on the way right, we have a feminine face. You can tell that it is from a rounder jawline, cheeks, an overall more roundness, more slender neck. But the parts of the skeleton we're still keeping, whether it's a masculine or feminine, is the eye sockets, the brow bone, the chin and jaw area. For while they are stylized, the face still follows some of the rules of realism. For our outline here, we're going to start with a circle. All of our faces and heads will start with a circle. Look at that, my favorite shape. Then we're going to draw a line straight down the middle. This will be where our chin and our nose lie on, and always will lie on the center line. We're going to start with drawing a little bit of the jaw, which is going to slope inward. That's our jawline. You can even touch your own jaw and feel it slope downward to the chin. So we're just going to draw those lines. And then I'm going to draw a line across just to use as a reference point, roughly where the jaw is going to slope downward to the chin. So if you see it's a little rounder, we're kind of doing like a round shape to a point, which is the chin. And then we're going to draw a line across. This is going to be the center of the eye. If you choose to do it lower, it's going to create a visual of a younger person, which eyes are usually lower, bigger forehead. For the neck here, I know we all want to just kind of swoop up in a circly shape, but there's really a muscle right there that connects to our neck muscles. You're actually going to see some of it, so it's going to kind of be like a little bit of a straight line coming from the cylinder of the neck. And then I just like to draw a little bit of the sternum, a little bit of the collarbone, just because I like to make it a little bit more realistic. You don't have to draw this, but it also gives me a guide of to make the neck symmetrical. So it is really up to you. And next we're going to draw the eye sockets. So I just draw a circle just to give myself an idea of roughly where the eye is going to be. You can make this bigger if you like. It's all up to you. I like to do mine a little smaller. Just make sure that any eye you do, whether it's big or small, it's going to be an eye's width apart between them. And I also like to draw a little guide of a line between the top and bottom of the eye because they are going to be the same size. It does help. Here we're drawing the nose line. This will be no lower than the jaw, and then the mouth line, which I like to make lower than the jawline. It can be equidistant between the nose and the chin. And then the ear is going to, top of the ear is going to line up with the roughly the middle of the eye, a little bit higher, no higher than the brow bone, and the lower part of the ear is going to line up with the nose. And here we're just going to erase those guidelines. That way we can focus on the facial features of the face. And here we are, and we're just going to start with the eyelid, or I should say the lash line of the upper eye. It's a very big signature part of manga art. And then we're going to draw the iris, which is I'm going to do in an oval-like shape. You can do in a round shape. The reference sheet I gave you gives you a few examples. And then the lower lash line as well. So the top and lower are the ones that I like to do just because it gives it a nice anime manga-like effect. Just make sure they're equal on both sides. You feel free to kind of draw an invisible line across so you can make sure that they are the same size. And then a little line above the eye to suggest an eyelid. I'm going to put a little line for the nose, just a little bit, and then a nice smile. I like to do like a line smile and then just a little line above it just to suggest that the mouth is a little open, a little more relaxed. It gives it a nice natural feel. And then the upper lip right there, and then a little line for it to suggest the lower lip. Now that we've done the face, next up is the hair, which is one of the signature parts of the manga style. So I'm going to draw a little bit of the hairline, just because I'm going to show a little bit of it. That's what I want to do for the hairstyle. You don't have to do this unless you think you're going to be showing a little bit more of the forehead in this case. And I like to do them in kind of like these chunks, so like these triangular chunks or these noodle-like chunks. I like to think of hair as kind of like spaghetti, different types of spaghetti. Like linguine is your fine hair, and rotini is your curly hair. And I usually like to start with the bangs and kind of work backwards. It's just a nice way to organize the hair. It makes it a little easier. If you do have a character with fine hair, I like to think like really fine hair. I like to think of it as ribbons. It makes it a little easier, but I would just start with your big shapes and then work your way to smaller strands if you want to do that detail. And now that I've started drawing the bangs, I'm just going to do some flippy hairs to make it seem more playful, especially if you're doing a more curly-esque style. Try to break up the shapes a little bit. Have them overlap, gives it a sense of depth if you're doing curly hair. If you're doing straight hair, you can do those little strands. It'll make it seem as if it goes around the head. So you have to think of it going around a dome. So kind of like a doll head, which is kind of what we're doing. And I'm just going to be finishing up the bangs here and working on the middle part of the hair, which you can see I'm drawing a little version from the side. So you can see that I'm going to be working on the middle part of the hair, which is just above the ear area. So I'm going to do some swoops going outward, just because I love swoops. Who doesn't? And then kind of going upward to give it an upward motion. And then I'm just going to break up a few of those shapes. I realized I made them a little too big. And I'm just going to break them up a little bit. Do some variation, do some big strands, small strands. It gives it the impression that it really is hair. And look, you can even see I'm fixing a part right there because I realized that it was just a little too high. I didn't want it to be that high of a hairstyle. And then just establishing that line because I erased it. And then just if you're losing any of your lines as you're drawing, feel free to reestablish it. I'm just drawing a little bit of the ear, so I like doing that little notch where the jaw connects to the ear, the line of the cartilage. You just do a suggestion of the the inside of the ear and then the cartilage. Those are the parts you really have to highlight. If you just want to do that line for the cartilage of the ear, that's totally fine too. You'll see there are a few different ear styles in the reference packet that I provided. And next we're going over to the other side of the hair. You can have an asymmetrical hairstyle, so where it isn't the same on both sides. I'm going to make mine just about similar. And I'm going to continue similar shapes on the other side, but with a little bit of variation, just to make it look more like a wild hairstyle. If you're doing something a little more symmetrical, like a bob cut, feel free to just do the same on the other side. It's all up to your preference. And then I'm going to do the back of the hair now. Since I've done the middle part, I'm going to do the back. I decided that I wanted to do a braid because I just love drawing braids. They're so much fun. The one thing about braids is that, contrary to our instinct, they're not a bunch of stacked up heart shapes. It's more like a rope. And the way I usually draw braids is drawing that center line where the braid is woven, so the center of the braid. And then I like to draw one side, kind of like stacked, slanted ovals, and just with getting smaller and smaller in shape, going to the bottom. As you can see, I'm continuing that braid. Think of it like rope. And then the other side is not going to line up just exactly with the left side. You're going to make it slightly off, so slightly higher, slightly lower. This gives it the impression that it is woven into each other. Rather than the stacked hearts, which doesn't really give too much of that impression. And I'm going to draw a little bow, and then I actually do get a little cut off here, but I'm going to zoom out a little bit later so you can see it's just a few strands of extra hair at the bottom. You'll see that a little bit later. And then we're going to just add little swoops, and then we're going to erase anything at the headline that we left when we were drawing the hair. The line of the top of the head, just because we want to be able to see our hair a little bit better. And feel free to erase any guideline that you may have missed, to reestablish any lines or shapes that may have been obscured as you were drawing, and which is a little bit of what I'm doing right here. Extending the shoulders a little bit, and I'm doing one of those signature cowlicks, the little antenna going up. You'll see that in a lot of fun anime and manga, just to suggest some wild and crazy hair, just a nice, fun and wacky way to spice up the hair. So I'll just do a little antenna there going through. Usually it comes from the middle of the part, which you'll see is right where the hair parts in the front. I always like to establish a part either at the beginning or the end. And then we're just going to be adding a few details here. So like the inside of the eye, the pupil, which is going to be about the same size as the iris. So I'm going to draw a little notch in there to suggest a shine in the eye. This gives it a nice impression without drawing the circle inside the eye. So that's just a style I like to do on occasion. And then just draw a little line, a little like a curved line. Suggests the shadow that falls from that brow bone, and it gives it really a realistic effect for the eye. And then just draw the outline of the pupil and the shadow together, and erase the inside line, and it gives it this combined effect of the shade that's coming to the eye, and it makes it really look anime-esque, or manga-esque in this case. And I'm just going to do a little fix. You can see I'm fixing something right here. I realized that the lash line wasn't the same on the left. It wasn't as perked up. So I'm just fixing that, which you could do anytime when you're drawing. Feel free to fix anything, because it's very easy to get caught up in the drawing. So you can see I'm doing a little bit more of the outlines. I'm fixing some of the shapes. I can see right here that I wanted the braid to go a little bit more over, because I wanted to make it look more like a side braid, and so that makes it look like it's laying more on her right shoulder. So there we go. I'm just reestablishing that upper lash line, and then the part right here. And then I love doing those little forelocks in front of the ears. It just brings such life and movement to the hair. I also felt like something was missing, so it made a nice little effect here. And now we're going to look at line quality and shading. This is going to really bring depth to our work. It's going to make it seem more anime-esque. In manga, they actually use a calligraphy-esque pen that gives it this effect naturally. Since we're using pencil today, we're just going to emulate that with the pencil. So any shape that's facing down, we're just going to put a little bit of a darker line on part of it. Not the whole thing, because you don't want to outline the whole thing or all be the same line thickness. We're just going to do that, and then if there's any negative space of a triangle facing upward, you're just going to make it a little darker there, because that's going to be where the darker shapes are. That's just the natural sunlight coming from above, and that's going to give it a more natural effect. And then you can see I'm going to go so under the eyes, on the eyelids, under the hair, under the chin, under the ear, and if any hair goes over the ear. Those are going to be the parts with the darkest lines. And then just reestablish your outlines if you lost any of them along the way, especially if it's smudging. And then next we're going to look at shading. So you're going to find the most shading under the chin, the hair, the ear, under the ear. If you have hair in the back, you're going to do a little bit in the back, the inside of the eye, or that shadow we made earlier. I like drawing a line around the shadow I'm making, just so I know where to hatch, and hatching is just drawing the lines parallel to each other. This gives it a more controlled effect and gives it a nice overall look. And reestablish any lines you need to, and it is almost done. And we did it! Congratulations! We made it through the feminine face from the front. Oh, isn't this exciting? Next up, we're going to do our feminine face from a 3/4 view. So this is the head turned slightly. You can see that we're going on the way right, we have the feminine face. We're going to show a little bit more of the back of the head, and then the side of the face that's facing away from us is going to be more squashed. That's just perspective working. So we're going to start with our circle, our lovely circle, and we're going to draw a line. It's going to not be straight down the middle, it's going to be to the side because the nose and the chin are going to be facing to the side. And then we're going to draw the eye line. You can draw this earlier, you can draw this later like we did in the front view lesson. It all depends on your preference. I drew a little bit curved. I believe it's actually the perspective of my camera filming. Just going to draw a parallel line. This is going to give me a guide of the chin jutting out. That's the jaw and the chin. So I'm going to draw the jaw line. It's not going to go to the back of the head because that's not the shape of our skull. And we're going to draw the jaw line on the right hand side right there. We're still going to keep it round, but you're still going to have the angle of it coming down. And then on the left side you'll see it's going to be more about the cheek. So it's going to go inward for the eye socket and down and round for the cheek. So you're going to see a little bit more of the chub of the cheek. And then we're just going to establish that line a little bit better. Make a little slope inward around the chin. You can exaggerate this if you wish, but this is just a straightforward interpretation. I'm just going to fix a few things there. Get a little bit more of that chin shape, make it a little bit more pointy. And then the eyes it's going to be closer to that center line. It's not going to be in the back. That's the way our skull is lined up. The eyes are always even if the other one's going to be squashed, the one that's away from us, it's still going to be the same height because that hasn't changed. So this is drawing that line across. You see this, my little egg buddy. This kind of gives you could choose to do this yourself with a marker and an egg. Just gives you an idea of the fact of the perspective of the face. So the way that the eye that's facing away from us, even though it's a little bit squished, more of an oval shape than a circle, that's just the way that you could do the eye when you do it in perspective. So I'm going to draw the ear right here where the jaw right there meets the cranium of the skull. And then I'm going to draw a little bit in the back just because our cranium does dome in the back. We got big heads, big nubbins. I'm just going to draw, so the ear is going to line up with the nose. I drew the ear first, you can draw the nose. And we're going to continue, we're going to work on the neck so you can see that more of that chin is sticking out. That's just from our jaw. And then I'm going to do the back of the head kind of sloping down into the back of the neck. A lot of us, we want to connect the line to the back of the ear and then down, but it really does connect to the back of our head. Our ear is not that close to the edge of our face. And then the mouth line, I'm just going to put equidistant between the nose and the chin. That's just our guide. I'm going to do a little bit of an eyebrow guide just to give myself an idea. It's just going to kind of mimic the circle shape that we've made, just a little bit higher. And then I'm just going to do that sternum, the clavicle, collarbone kind of shape, just to give myself an idea. It makes me think of how things are perspective. And then here I'm going to start doing the facial features. So I'm going to do kind of a lower lidded eye, kind of a cool, collected eye right here. So having the eye socket really helps when you're doing a lower lidded eye or a half closed eye, so you can kind of know how much lid to add. So I just reflect that on the other side. You can see that it's kind of the same shape of the right eye, but it is kind of squished, compressed inward, but it is going to be the same shape essentially. And then I'm just going to do the eyebrow right above there, and then just make sure they line up. They're still going to line up even if it's in a different on the left side. And feel free to use your egg buddy if that helps with the drawing, or just copy what I've drawn here. So I'm just going to reestablish some of my lines. I just want to make it slope a little more inward for the chin because I want to make a little bit of a rounder cheek here. It's all up to preference. And then I want the pupil and the iris to be facing us, so I'm going to put it in the corner of the eye, like it's looking towards us. Kind of want to make sure the ratio of iris to white of the eye is the same on the left side. You're going to get used to this with practice. At first it's a little weird, but it's so much fun when you figure it out and you can draw it yourself. And then just make sure for the mouth, the side closest to us is going to be the regular shape of the mouth, and then the side facing away, the left side, is going to be shorter. So just make sure to keep that in mind. And I'm just going to reestablish some of these lines here. And then right in the back of the head. And then erase those guidelines that we had drawn earlier. You can erase them after you do the basic eye sockets, nose line, mouth line. It depends on what your process is. So I'm just going to draw a little bit of a dome hairstyle, kind of like a bob with straight cut bangs. So you can see you're kind of making it slope over the face. Remember, the face and the head are round, so the hair is going to fall in a rounded shape. And then I'm going to have the hair come down, kind of like Cleopatra in a way, or the stylized version of Cleopatra. And then I'm going to kind of bring down the other side. It's kind of pop off the face to make it look more 3D. Remember, overlapping always makes things look more in depth. It looks more like it's coming at you or receding. So that's why I have the bob on the right hand side covering the neck, because I wanted that effect. And I'm just going to erase the headline as well. You can see that so the bangs have a part across, and then the back of the head has a part straight back, which you'll see in some hairstyles. If you need help with hairstyles, we have that in our reference packet, or you can look at your own hair, or photos, or even your favorite anime characters or manga characters. And I'm just going to split up the shapes. So I drew the big shapes, and I'm just going to split it up because it's more of a straight hairstyle. I'm going to kind of break up the big chunks of where it would be. And then draw some smaller lines to suggest more hair. And then we're going to do a little bit more of that line quality like we did with our front-facing feminine head. We're going to do those dark spots right where the hair gaps are. It's going to give it a real effect that it's popping away from the face. And then right around the ear, so I have a little space, you can see where the top of the ear and the bangs are. I'm just going to fill that in just to give it the effect of the ear and the hair on top of it. And they're going to go along, so the bottom of the hair is going to have a lot more dark lines. Under the ear, where the jaw lines meet, and the underneath the chin is going to be darker. especially. That's one of the most important darker areas to do. If you only do one area, under the bangs and under the neck, under the chin, and of course the lash line, which we'll get to. And I'm just going to do the upper lip as well. That's another area you want to darken. It makes it look a lot like it's open. If it's open, if the mouth is closed, it's going to be a little different. But for an open mouth, you just want to do the right under the upper lip. And then we're just going to reestablish some of our lines that I've lost. Do that inside the eye detail of the pupil and the shadow. I'm going to fill in a little darker than I did before, kind of accentuate the outside of the eye. I'm going to do a little bit of a shine, which is just a wiggle and a swoop to suggest hair shine. And then I'm just going to shade the hair going away from us, where the bangs go over the ear, the straight bangs under the chin. It's going to give it really the effect that it's domed. It's a domed hair shape. And then just reestablishing some of those lines we lost when shading. And then we're just going to go in there and just do a little bit more hatching. You can see it's just parallel lines, not like your back and forth zigzag, and it gives it a nice shaded effect if you have darker hair as well. And then just a little touch up here. Oh yes, and a little shading on the indent of the eyelid. And there we are. We have done the feminine face 3/4 view. My favorite view, by the way. Wasn't that fun? And next we're going to do the feminine face from the side. This shows you a lot more of that swoop of the pointy nose. So you're going to see we're going to have more of that dome in the back. We're still going to have the rounded jaw, the rounded nose, and whatnot. You're going to see more of the jaw stick out. So we're going to start with our signature circle. Oh, I'm just starting to love circles. And then we're going to put that line. So that's going to be our eye line still. But then we're going to diverge a little bit. So I'm going to draw kind of a line sloping down. So right now we're drawing the jaw. So think of it kind of like a sideward skull right now. And then we're going to just draw kind of like a triangle shape coming outward. That's going to be our nose and our mouth. So it's kind of coming off the face. So like our nose and our mouth do off of the skull, it's going to come off. And then we're just going to draw the back of the neck, the chin. It's going to be farther back than it was before. And because we've drawn most of the circle, you're going to get a lot of that cranium dome in the back. The neck is going to be a bit farther back on the chin. So this is our basic side shape. And then the ear is usually behind that straight line. So it's not going to be, this is the time when that center line is not going to be where our nose and the chin lie on. We're using it more as a center point to use as a reference line, just because the nose and the mouth are to the left. So we're just going to draw that ear shape. We'll put those little details in there, and then I'm just going to draw a little bit jutting out, so above the eye line, just a little bit jutting out to suggest the brow bone. So it's going to be just a little bit, and then I'll do a little circle for the eye socket, but I am going to draw kind of a triangular shape to kind of suggest that the eye is open. There's the upper lash line. The lower lash line usually swoops up towards the upper lash line to suggest the curve of the cheek. This has been done stylistically different, but this is the way I like to do it. You'll see a few examples in the works to come in this class. And then I'm just going to draw the iris. So it's going to be a more narrow circle because we're only going to be seeing half of it. You can draw it more rounded or with a sharp line coming down the front of the iris. And then the eyelid is going to be more towards the front of the eye. And then the eyebrow is going to be more towards the front. Now you want to make sure that your eye isn't too close to the front of the face or too far back, because that will look a little bit strange. So I'd use either yourself as a reference or other manga characters you've seen, to get a good idea. But the more you do it, the easier it gets. And then we're just going to have that pointy nose going out, just going to slope down, just have 2 bumps for the lips, and then it's going to jut out for the chin. So it's going to jut out kind of in a semi, kind of like a angle with a curve on it for that chin. And then I'm just going to reestablish that chin shape and some of our lines. I'm going to do a little nostril there. And then I'm going to do the mouth shape. So I'm just going to draw a line for the upper lip. You can see that I'm doing a little example on the side here. Sometimes the mouth shape shows a little bit of that other side of the mouth. Sometimes it just kind of floats. It all depends on your preference and how you want to do it. I'm just going to draw a line from the outside of the lip into the inside of the upper lip, just to give it that nice effect. A little smile there, and then a little bit of a line for the lower lip. We don't have to draw a lip line this time, because we're seeing it at an angle, so we see where that lip is. And I'm just darkening that so I can see that from the outline. And then we're just going to reestablish some of those lines, erase some of those guides. And then I like to take that part that goes from the jaw to the neck and round it just a tiny bit. If you make it too sharp, it can seem a little less natural. So I'm just going to bring that line from the back of the head and bring that line down. So it's still going to be kind of a soft shape. And then that's just the body going out on the left line of the chin. Now you're going to see here that it skipped ahead. A lot of stuff is added. That was my camera blipping out. So I try my best to lighten it up and go over some of those lines. So I did the front of the hair originally with the bangs. Then I did the forelock. I basically worked left to right with the hair. I did the upper part of the hair, and then I worked on the lower part of the long hair, which I just did. You could see I just did one big shape, and then I went down and added a few lines. Now you want to make these lines not the same distance from each other, vary it up a little bit, make some close together, some farther apart. It gives it the more impression that it's real hair, which we're trying to do. And then I'm just establishing some of those lines again so you can see it. And we're really going to focus on getting those lines underneath facing downward. That's going to create that illusion of shadow even without shading. So you don't even have to shade if you don't want to. We're just going to get it above the lash line, one of the most important areas to darken. We're going to do a little bit of establishing the outline of the figure's head. We're going to go around the hair, so a little bit more of that. And then I always like to make the little dark area fully shaded in right above the ear, and if there's a bit in the hair of the skin showing through the hair, I like to darken that because it really makes the ear look like it's behind the hair and really makes the ear look 3D. So that's what I like to do. And I'm just going to add a little extra strand of hair there. Just to give it an extra loose and flowy feel. That's what hair is all about, loose and flowy, or spiky if it's a spiky hairstyle, which we'll get to later in our class. I'm just going to go in here and establish some extra thicker lines. I like to do just a little bit, and then I like to go through and hit those points like under the chin, under the upper lip, the lash line, the eye, around the ear. You'll see here I'm going to add the pupil to the eye. I'm just going to darken that, give you a little shadow. Eyes are so fun. And then under the chin, we're going to do that shading again, where you just do the outline of the shading and then the hatching, which is just those parallel lines, just all bunched together. You don't have to be that dark with it. You can be very light. If you press darker, it's going to make it a darker shadow. You may lose some of your shapes, so just be aware of that. And I'm just going to darken the bangs that are in the front so it looks like they're away from us. It's around the other side of the face. It really gives a nice impression. and then under the hair that flips up, it makes the middle part of the hair look separate from the back side, the long flowing back of the hair. And I'm just going to reestablish some of those lines that I lost when I was going through. Probably smudged it a little bit. And then I'm just going to add a little more dark to the eye. You can have different nose styles. You can add a little shadow to the nose if you'd like. This is just going to add a little bit on here. It's going to go around the nostril. It's going to suggest that that nose is more of a triangle shape, which it is. You don't need to put a shadow there. It all depends on your style. I'm going to put also a little small suggestion of a shadow under the lip. And then I'm just going to go around and outline that silhouette so it really pops. And there you have it. We did it. And next time we're going to move towards masculine faces. So we're going to start with the front view just like we did with the feminine face. You can see here that it's basically going to have a similar layout, except it's going to have more of an angle around the jaw, sometimes a flatter chin or a pointier chin, and more angular on the neck. You're also going to see a lot more of that neck muscle and the shoulder muscles, a little bit more of the muscle that comes from the top of the jaw and down to the clavicle. So you're going to see a little bit more of that. Not all masculine faces have that pronounced of a neck. It could be a thinner one, but making sure it's a little bit more angular, and then our eyebrow features a little bit more pronounced, which we'll show you later. And you'll get a better idea of how to make a masculine face different from a feminine one. So we're going to start our masculine face in a very similar way to our feminine face. We're going to start with our circle. Again, we're going to do our line down the middle. It's going to be very similar. It's going to diverge a little bit, but it's going to be basically the same, just with a few tweaks. So we're going to do that line under the circle. That's where our jawline is going to start. And so we're going to go up to here, and we're going to draw our line for our eyes. Remember, this line is for the center of the eyes. That way, if it's looking up or down, we can gauge that a little bit better. We're going to draw that line down. It's going to be a little bit more straight because we want more of an angle rather than it sloping in like the feminine face. We're going to have more of a point at the edge of the jaw, and it's going to go more of a straight line down to the chin. I'm going to draw a little bit of a flat chin at the bottom. It can be pointy. It's really up to you, so it depends if you want a smaller chin or a pointier chin. It usually suggests a younger age. A more flat bottom suggests more muscle, or a wider face, or an older character. So we're just going to go up there. We're going to do our the eye socket on the eye line here. I'm just correcting my line a little bit. I want it to be a little bit more straight. And then I'm just going to add those eyes in. It's the same distance apart, the eyes width apart. And you can see that I'm making the eyes a little bit higher on this face. It's all up to you. Like I said, lower the eyes, the younger the character usually. And then right between where I have the eyes and the jawline is going to be the nose. So you could do it in a trace a triangle shape. It's going to be within that triangle from the edges of the eyes to the bottom of that circle. So you could do it that way if it's a little easier. Then we're going to draw those ears. Like I said, it's going to be a higher part of the eye socket, and then the bottom of the ear is going to line up with the nose. There's those eye guidelines at the top and bottom, same as the feminine face. Sometimes the ears can be a little bit longer on masculine characters. Usually if they're older, they have longer, wider ears, longer ears. Same with noses. One of those things would be age. One of the things that gets bigger. And then we're just going to draw that neck, but instead of it curving outward like a feminine face does, the neck is going to curve a little bit in, and that's going to have a little bit of a sharp line out. And then we're going to see a little bit more of that muscle that comes up from the jaw down to the clavicle. You can see I'm going to make a little line there so I can make sure that my neck is even, those lines are even. And I'm just going to erase those guidelines because we have a basic outline here of what we need to start with. So we're working on those facial features. So you typically, a masculine face has sharper facial features. So the eye is usually sharper. There's a lot more angles, a little less round. So I'm going to do a little bit more of an angular eye here. And I'm going to draw more of a circular shape. Again, this is just a style of eye. There's a whole bunch of them on the eye reference sheet on the PDF I'm sending you prior to the class. And then I'm just going to reestablish that line there. And a longer eyelid to kind of show that the eye is a little bit closed. Kind of a confident, defiant look, I think. And then I'm just going to go across and mirror that eye. So sometimes you can kind of, like I said before, you can kind of mimic a line across just to make sure that it's lined up. But the eye line, the guideline that we drew before should help us out. And then I'm just going to do that iris. Alright, just going to erase the remaining of the eye socket that's there. And I'm going to draw. So I'm going into a little bit more detail with the eyes just because I'm right here and I want them to be a little bit more simplified. And then we're going to draw on our nose here. Usually masculine faces have a little bit more of a pointy nose, but really if they're younger it can be rounder. I'm just going to put a little bit of a nostril there. That you're going to see a suggestion of the nose nostril right there. And I'm going to go down to the mouth, which is usually somewhere halfway between the nose and the chin. I want to do a little bit of a sideways smile, a little bit like a smirk, but I made the left side a little too low, so you're going to see I'm going to fix that a little bit because it looks a little wonky. So just going to go up and make it a little more subtle. Again, there's lots of great examples in the reference sheet for mouths that I've created. So you can copy them, you can practice them separately from your faces. You can use it whatever way you like. And you can see I am adding a little bit more detail in this one where I'm adding that shadow that's at the edge of the lips that really gives it a sense of recedingness, the mouth shape, and where the lips press together. Then the masculine faces usually have a longer lip line, if it does have a lip line. It's usually a little bit longer, a little bit thinner, not as far down as the feminine face. Just erase some of our lines here. Just gonna reestablish our jaw. Just to get ourselves ready for our hair. So masculine hair, it can be short, long, spiky. In this case, I'm just doing a little bit of a combo, so it's going to be a little spiky, a little bit finer of hair. And I just like to do chunks, so especially if we have a spikier hairstyle, it's nice to do it in chunks. And I always start with the bangs because that's the part that's going to be in the front. And the things in the back you can do in the back. So I'm just going to go through. Now I've already made the side part. You see I drew a little bit of a line to the right of that front bang piece. That's where the part is, and the hair is all going to be coming from that part. So you can see it's all pointing in that direction because that's where the hair is falling from. So you can see even the wisps come from that, or pointing in that direction at their top. So I can add some more spikes in there. Yeah, a little bit of hair, a little bit of extra spiky hair under the ears, and then I'm putting a little bit of that kind of a sideburn-esque piece of hair that you could sometimes see in masculine or short hair characters. And then we're just going to go through and we're going to do that line quality like we've been doing so far with our past faces. We're going to go through and accentuate the eyebrow a little bit. We're going to do some lines under the hair because it's so spiky. We have a lot more shapes, a lot more shadows being cast. We're going to make it a little bit more sharp. It's all about sharp lines, sharp corners, angles, and all that sort of stuff. If you do have a masculine character that has like flowy hair, then usually it's the eyebrows or the face shape that has more of the angles. And then we're just gonna add some little touch-ups here. Really get that point of the mouth, especially if the mouth is open like that and smirking. You're going to have more darkness on the corners of the lips. And then the chin especially. When you put that dark line under the chin, it really gives you a sense, because the face is always going to be casting some sort of shadow on the neck, just naturally. So even just adding that line, it really gives us a sense of that. We're going to continue with the neck. The neck is going to go a little bit into the shoulder. Going to add a few more of those lines underneath the bottom of the shapes. I'm going to add a few more little hairs, a little more detailed hairs. Gives it more of a flowy feel. It gets more three-dimensional. And then we're going to put a little bit more line around the eyebrows, because that's really important with masculine characters, is that having the eyebrow and the eye be pronounced. We're just going to add a little bit more detail. Going to reestablish our lines here. And then we're going to go in and do a little bit more. I want to accentuate the points on the hair to really make them look spiky. Really makes them pop off the page. Just going to go through, and we're going to add our shadings. So you can see I drew that line and then I did the hatching. So the hair being a shadow cast from the hair onto the face is always a good place to start. The hair overlapping the ears, if there's any hair doing that, and then of course under the chin, there's always going to be some sort of shadow under the chin to some degree. And then we're going to do a little bit of a shadow under the lip. I'm just going to go through, because when you do some of the hair in the back, to kind of make it look like the spikes are coming from behind the hair, back of the hair. And here we are, we have the masculine face from the front view. I knew you could do it. And on next to our masculine face from the 3/4 view, or 3/4 view, you could see in the middle face here that the male, you see a little bit more of that angular jaw, the nose is a little bit more pronounced, a little bit more sharp. So we're going to focus on those. The brow bone is going to be a little sharper as well. And here we are again, making our lovely circle. It's a little bit of deja vu, isn't it? But we're doing our circle again. And just like our feminine face 3/4 view, I'm going to bring back our egg face right here, just to get you another idea. It's going to be the same concept of having the side facing away from us a little more squished, and to do the center line of the face at more of a curve. So you'll see it's going to curve at the top and be a little bit more straight going down where the face is. We're going to do our line across. It's going to be our eye line. And then I'm going to fix that one. Always fixing. And then our line for our draw line, that's our line across. And then I'm just going to draw that parallel curved line on the side, just to act as our guide for our face coming out. So we're going to draw, for this one I'm going to draw a line across. So I'm deciding how long I want the chin to be, so I think I want it to be a little bit shorter. Or, nope, I want it longer. That's what the creative process is all about, whatever feels right to you. You'll get kind of an idea. Since we're using more angles here, so I drew the line right there for the mouth. I drew a little early, and then we're just going to draw from the center line, we're going to draw the chin going up to the jaw. Remember, you want to keep a little bit of that round shape for the back of the cranium. Put those eyes closer to the front. And then we're going to have the eye facing away from us on the more squished one. Again, it's going to be the same height as the right eye. feel free to put guidelines, and we're going to add that chin in there. It's going to be a little sharper, especially on the jaw. We're going to have more of a pronounced jaw, more of a pointy chin. The line from the jaw to the chin is going to be straighter. Just like before, we could still have a curve where the cheek is. They could still have cheeky. But we're going to add more point to the nose. The nose is usually going to be on the left side of this line because of the way it's turned. And then I'm just going to be a little bit more particular with the facial features here. So we're going to add that mouth shape. You'll see on the right hand of the screen I drew a little bit of a why the mouth on the left side is a little squished just because of the way the face is curved when you turn it. And I'm just going to add a little flat part for the chin. Do a little fix. I'm just going to do, now you can add a guide for the eyebrow. Now I'm going to add a little bit of a point to that brow bone because that's, again, it's all about angles. So we're going to add that point. That's going to give us a little bit more of a masculine impression. And then we're going to go up and we're going to put that ear in. Remember, the ear, bottom of the ear starts where the nose is. The ear can be, like I said, the top of the ear can be anywhere between halfway between the eye but no taller than the eyebrow. And then we're going to add a little bit more of that cranium. I added a little dash there. That's going to be the bottom of the hairline. We'll get to that later. Now the neck is going to be thicker because we had it thicker before. Typically, masculine faces have thicker necks, especially if you have a muscled masculine character or feminine character. They're going to have a thicker neck. But with a masculine character, you're going to have a little bit more angles to it. And here we're going to go in here. We're going to add a little bit of that line for the muscle in the neck. A little Adam's apple, you're going to see more of that now. And then we're going to, that's for male characters, and then we're going to add some of the detail in the ear. So that's the inner ear area. I just put an outline around it, cartilage, and then we're just going to erase our guidelines here since we have our basic shape. We're going to get to the eye. She saved the eye for last because I knew what I wanted for the nose and mouth, but not for the eye, so it came to me at the end. So I'm going to do a little bit of a wider eye for this one, kind of a surprise face. Usually when you have a surprise expression, the eye is going to be detached from the top lash line, and then the eyebrows are going to be a little higher up. It's not a very exaggerated sense of surprise, just a very slight one. There's more about expressions in our reference packet, so you could take a look at that, about how the face moves when they do a certain expression and different exaggerations, intensities. So I'm just going to go through and do the eye on the other side. And I'm just going to fix that because the eye on the left wasn't exactly lined up, so I did a little phantom line across so I could make sure that I made the iris just the right size and height. So just going to reiterate that line there. Just going to draw the eyebrow in. The eyebrow's usually a little bit more sloped if it's a more angular eyebrow. If it's a rounder one, it's going to be a little bit skewed. You'll get the hang of this over time as well. Don't worry. That's why the class is here, to help you figure some things out and practice and have some fun. So I'm just going to draw a little bit shine to that eye. Oh, look at that. Nice and sparkly. And then we're just going to go through and kind of accentuate the eye shape, the eyebrow. And that's our face right here, so we're going to move on to hair. This one I'm going to make more of a fine hairstyle, more smooth with a little bit of curl. Again, I got a great reference sheet for you to start with in the packet that I put together. And then again, we're going to have that right where those hairs sticking up in the back. I'm going to have it come from that point, so it's going to be kind of like a single point part where everything kind of comes, all the hair flows from there. So make sure that all your hair is going the direction of that part. So in this case, it's just a center point. So the fluffy, overlapping, poofy hair can sometimes all come at a point rather than a line. So it's going to be kind of a long chunks with a little bit of a curl at the end. So I'm going to add some hair to the other side of the face. This is going to be kind of like behind the head in a way, so you're going to see a little bit more of that brow bone. I put a little hair in the way just to break up the space a little bit, make the hair seem more unruly. I'm just going to add a little few hairs. Decided to make that center shape a little bit bigger, just because, you know, manga is all about wacky hair, so how about we add some volume to it and have some fun with it. And I'm just going to go on and erase that outline at the top of the head, just so I can get a better idea of the shapes of the hair pieces. And then after you get past the ear, especially with short hair, the pieces become a lot smaller and finer. So you'll see under the ear, it's a lot more like strands and tiny pieces, because the bigger pieces are usually at the top of the hair. And then we're just going to go through and we're going to add some details. So we're now going to work on our line quality. So we're going to add some of that darker lines to the places that to suggest shadow and depth. Make the hair look more three-dimensional, like it's going around the head. Make the ears look like they're coming off the face, the chin going over the neck. That's all what the line quality is about. You don't have to do it. I just think it really improves the overall effect of your manga art. And we're just going to go through and establish some of our outside lines. I'm going to go and add some strands, so we're just going to add some lines to the inside of the hair to make it look like there's some individual strands there, give it the effect that it's hair, especially because it's a finer hair. It really gives that effect that it's moving. It gives more movement to the hair strands themselves. And we're just going to go in and really darken those eyes. I'm just going to do a full black just to give it a real nice effect. And you could do this too, of course. Just get those deep blacks in there. A little bit more definition on the eyebrow. We're going to do some shading. Going to do a little bit between the hair because that one piece goes over the other. Basically, whatever is on top, if it's something's underneath, you want to put a little bit of shadow, just a little bit. Choose the big shapes first. We're going to put a little bit of shadow behind the ear because that bottom of the hair is going back. We're just going to add that a little bit of a definition to the under the chin. We're going to make it a little bit darker near the edge that where the pointing at the neck near the chin. I'm just going to go through and put some more definition in those lines. I'm going to do some of that shading I did last time with the nose, with the side feminine face. I'm going to do that here with the 3/4 masculine face. This time it's going to be a little bit of a wider shadow because we're seeing it at a different angle. Going to do a little shadow on the eye just because it's surprise, it's more open, so we're going to see a little bit more of that roundness. So that shadow on the eye is going to show us that. I'm going to accent some of our points in our hair around our chin. Just a few finishing touches. And there we have it, our masculine face in a 3/4 view. And now we're on to our masculine face from the side view. So you can see right here in the middle head right there, we're going to follow a similar pattern, but the jaw is going to be sharper, sharper nose, sharper brow bone, and whatnot, eyebrow, and so forth. So we're going to start with our circle, our last circle of the class. Or almost last circle. And then we're going to do our line straight down. So it's going to start very similarly to our feminine face in the side view. So we're going to bring that line down. And then we're going to put a line across, a little bit lower than halfway for our eye line. So we're just going to continue down. On the left hand side, we're just going to start with drawing a line to the right. This is going to be our jawline roughly. And then we're just going to draw another line that's equidistant, lower than the jawline. That's going to be where our chin ends. I'm going to draw a line from the top of the eye and down to the bottom where the chin would be, kind of sloping inward. That's going to be our face, because our face does slope inward, just the way the natural shape of our skull. And then we're going to draw the jaw. So you can see right there, just like a skull in the side angle, it's going to stick out. The jaw's going to stick out a little bit. And I'm just going to draw a little. Oh, one second, we just got to fix that. So we're just going to do roughly a line where we know the nose will be. A little bit lower than the eye line, and then we're just going to draw the nose coming down, and then it's going to be like a little triangle going down to the chin. We're going to draw a little bit of the jaw, and then you're going to draw the circle for the eye socket. So I'm drawing it like a full circle just to give you an idea. We're not going to draw like we usually do an eye, but I'm just doing it so that you know that the eyeball is in that shape. So rather than thinking of an eye socket, think of more of the eyeball going into the head. And then we're going to draw the back of the head a little bit. I'm just adding a little bit more on because I want it to be a little bit of a larger head. So I'm adding a little sliver of the back cranium on. And then we're just going to draw our ear, which in this case we're going to put that a little farther back this time. You could do it a little closer, do a little farther. This is more of a stylistic preference. How wide do you want the jaw to be? Going to reestablish that's the outline of the head in the back. Add a little bit of a point. You see that point for the brow bone? That makes it a little bit more angular. So a little bit of an angle to the nose too. And I'm going to draw a little bit of a V shape, just a guide right there, just to show me that the eye, that's how the lids typically fall on a realistic eye. So it's going to be a little similar to that. Then I'm going to draw a little line across because I'm going to make this character have a little bit of an eyelid that's lowered. So the eye's going to be a little bit lowered, half closed a little bit. It gives it kind of a cool, calm look. So I'm just going to draw across. And I'm just going to erase some of those guidelines just so we can draw our features in here. I'm just going to erase the lines we've made. Continue erasing. We're just going to go down into re-outline the nose. I'm going to put a little bit of a pointier nose, and it's going to swoop down to that upper lip, which is kind of like a rounded M, very shallow M shape. And then I just had a little hint of a mouth, go down to the jaw, and I'm going to go down to the eye. So usually the iris of the eye has a clear layer, so some artists will put a kind of a divot in the front of the eye to suggest that, or they'll just make it round. It's really a stylistic choice. And I'm just going to do a little line in the front to suggest an eyelid, and then a little line above it. That just suggests the eyelid pushing against the skin above it. It gives it a sense of depth. Then I'm going to do a nice thick brow with a little bit of an angle on it. We're going to draw a little bit of arch on the back, kind of like more of a contemplative eyebrow. Just going to go around and re-solidify some of those lines. And then erase some of those ones we don't need. I just want the eyebrow to be a little bit smaller in this case. I'm going to go and do the neckline. Remember, a small bump for the Adam's apple if you're doing anatomically male character, and then we're just going to draw a little bit of the neck muscle, and then we're going to head on to the hair. So I'm actually drawing the hairline well, this is a certain shape of hairline. You can choose different types. There's different ones out there. This is just one that I default to. Just gives me an idea of roughly where the sideburn is, and if there's any of the forehead showing, I'll know where to make the hair come from. So I'm just going to start with the hair. So I'm going to start with the front hair. I picked kind of a side part hair where it goes over to from the side that's closest to us to the other side of the nose. So I'm just going to draw the hair coming from the back. So usually with a dramatic side part, it's going to be on one side. So you're going to make sure that the hair is coming from that part. So just keep that in mind, whether you're drawing from the side or from the front. And then just drawing the top layer of hair. You can kind of think of short hair as in layers coming down, kind of like flares of fringe. Just going to erase that top of the headline so I can better get a gist of the shape of the hair. I'm going to draw some more body around to really feel like it's going to the other side, and a little swoop up in the air just for fun. The little hairs can give it a sense of motion. And then we're just going to do some line quality and shading, just like we've been doing all along. Again, you don't have to do this. I just feel like it gives it a really nice sense of definition. So we're going to go in here and add some details to the ear, to the eye. And then that part, the part that goes across the face, that's the reason why it's a really dark line, is because that's a really big piece of hair, and it's going to be casting a shadow on the face. So it's going to be a little bit of a darker line, as you've noticed, especially on that part right there. So a little triangle of shade. So we're really going to get a sense of definition, especially when you have hair in this style. So you're going to do a little dark under the nose, especially in a side angle, under the lip, under the chin, under the ear, where the hair part is, especially where it meets the head. And then we're just going to go through and establish some of our lines. And then as for the shading, we're going to amp up the lash line, outline the pupil in the shade, and outline the iris itself. I'm going to fill in the inner ear, put some shadow under the chin, some shadow cast in the hair. And then a little bit more shadow because it's a round shadow, so it's going to come down a little bit in the front of the face. I'm going to make a darker shadow on the other side to really make it seem like it's in the other side of the face. For shadows, usually when they cast, they usually mimic the shape above it, but just slightly smaller or off a little bit. So I'm just going to do a little bit of slight shading. And here we are with our masculine side view face. We made it through our entire class. I'm so excited and proud of you. And here's some additional tips. Here I'm just going to show you a very quick speed drawing of using the concept we learned today to draw your own arts. You'll see that a lot of the guides, like the circles and the lines across, aren't as apparent once you get used to where things are in the face. It's just a good starting point to know where things lie. So you can see right here that I've established some of our techniques. This is me using pencil because I know a lot of you saw me using blue pencil, so I'm using a 0.9 thicker pencil just to show you that it's possible with any type of pencil. Just be aware that the graphite pencils do smudge a little bit more. And we're going to show you a front, a 3/4, and a side. So here's the front. I'm going to do a side one right here. Do some more quick shading, just just a really fast drawing just to show you how you can take all that we learned today and apply it. Let's get some of that wild hair. Just remember, you're learning something new, so be kind to yourself, be patient, and enjoy. Just enjoy the process, because that's what it's all about. And eventually, over time, you're going to learn and grow and improve. One of my favorite techniques in order to check my work is the flip test. When we look at something for a long time, sometimes our eyes can see it a certain way but not actually realize that something may be a little off, as you can see from our cat girl right here. When we flip it, we can see that the cheek is a little bigger on one side, so it makes it easier to know what to correct. And that just happens from our hand when we rest our hand on the table. So you can use the flip test by flipping the paper over and holding it up to the light, or using your phone camera light to go through it. That can work too. Or using a camera, taking a picture, editing and flipping, although that one can be skewed a little bit if you aren't holding it exactly straight over the paper. So just a nice way to check your work if you would like to do that. Woo! We made it! Made it through the class. Wasn't that fun? I hope you all had a fun time today. I know I did. And feel free to check us out on our Instagram, TPL Teen, our YouTube channel, Tewksbury Library, or Facebook. Well, our website is also on there as well, so feel free to take a look, see what we have to offer. We're on our Instagram, we update it with programs and our collection, and we always want to cater our programs to you, so please let us know if there's anything you'd like to see in the future. And we have a Manga Art class next month for anatomy, so please stay tuned. We have a lot more fun stuff. Thanks for watching today, and happy drawing!